Hi everyone! I have my forest fairy gear on today because we will be learning how to crochet our own baby Groot from the movie Guardians of the Galaxy. For those of you who have not seen the movie and have no interest in seeing the movie, Groot, I guess, is like a tree warrior from another planet, and at the end of the movie there's a little baby Groot who's dancing, and obviously this guy is not gonna be able to dance on his own, but he will be wired so he's posable. This guy has pipe cleaners running through his arms. This time I will be using actual wire, 16 gauge wire instead of pipe cleaners because I actually went and bought wire. And this time we will be attempting to put plastic pellets at the base of him to weight him down because I know some people who have already worked this pattern that's free on my blog were commenting that his head is so big that he doesn't stand up on his own, which I had never intended him to do, but we will try to put the plastic pellets in there and see if it helps balance him out a little bit. Think Geek kindly tweeted a link to this pattern, and I've been reading the comments, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, it looks like Sackboy, and I kind of know who that is because I've seen the video game packaging at Best Buy, but I don't really play video games, so I don't really know anything about Sackboy. This guy is actually based on images that I've seen of the Funko bobblehead for Groot, so that's why his head is so large and he doesn't look quite the same as the Groot in the movie, but I just thought this big head, cute, whatever. Hot in her. So what you'll be needing is brown worsted weight yarn. If you want to know what I'm using Rowan Summer Tweed, and this color is chocolate fudge, and I like it because it's nubbly and it reminds me of tree bark. But again, any brown will be fine. This particular color is discontinued. I know that Rowan Summer Tweed has another brown tweed, which I don't remember the name of right now, but that one's perfectly fine. I know that Plymouth Encore Worsted has a beautiful tweed as well. If you can find a worsted weight brown tweed, awesome. If not, just use any old brown yarn like Red Heart Super Saver, Vanna's Choice. It's just up to whatever you want. For the leaves, I used a sport weight kind of spring green yarn. This is Red Heart Designer Sport in pistachio, but again, any sport weight green will be fine. The leaves are pretty teeny tiny, so if you wanted to avoid crocheting leaves, you could also cut them out of green felt, and then I would sew them on with brown yarn, and that would be extra cute and time saving. We had 9mm eyeballs, like 9mm safety eyes. You can also use 12mm, but I think 6mm would be too small. And if you want to put a little mouth on him, just a really small, like a yard of black worsted weight yarn or embroidery thread. I will be using my trusty H-hook. You will also need aforementioned plastic pellets. This is by the brand Polyfill Poly Pellets. I just bought them at Joann. Can you use rice or beans? Yes, you can, but I have read that the beans might sprout. Too much moisture gets on them, and I just feel like putting food inside my toys is kind of weird in case they spoil, so I would prefer to put something that won't spoil inside. And in order to make sure that those beads don't poke out of the stitches, one of my blog readers suggested using old tights or pantyhose. So you just, you cut off here, stuff it with pellets, tie it off, and you can just keep doing that and using the whole leg of it. So we're going to do that. You're going to need a little bit of stuffing for his head and his body. 16 gauge wire to wire his body. Again, like the wire and the beads are optional. You don't have to make him posable. He does not have to stand up on his own outside of the pot. So these are kind of extras that you don't have to do. Like if I were just making one for myself, I probably wouldn't make him posable, and I wouldn't make him I don't care if he falls over because I'm not like standing him up without his pot. So whatever, it's up to you. And then this pot I spray painted with white paint. Someone asked me how big the pot is that I used. I don't know. I just took my baby Groot shopping with me, and I found him a house that I thought he would like. This one is about 3.5 inches in diameter. Optionally, you can buy like decorative rocks, or if they're in your backyard, just pick up some rocks. And if you want like decorative moss bits, and I just like decorative moss, so I loved having an excuse to buy it. But again, you can use little bits of yarn or whatever you want to create the look of rocks and moss. The baby Groot that I'll be crocheting tonight will probably be longer than this guy, because you can see like he doesn't sit at the bottom. He kind of hovers in the middle, and I kind of want him to be anchored more in the pot, so I'm going to make him a little taller. I think that's it. It's starting to get dark, so I'm going to turn the lights on. It's going to be a night tutorial. Exciting. A few notes before we get started. People are asking me if I will be selling finished Groots. No. That's why I made the pattern for free. And people are asking if I would give them permission to sell Groots in their Etsy stores or whatever. That is not my permission to give. The reason why I'm not selling them is because I try to respect the trademark and copyrights of other companies, and the Groot character does not belong to me or you. I know people do it a lot. I'm just very sensitive about it, and I try to avoid it. So, I mean, ultimately that decision is yours. It's not mine. I'm not granting you permission. I'm not working with Marvel in any way to produce this pattern, so that's why it's just free and for all the fans to make. So yeah, that's my perspective on that. You can do with it whatever you want. I am not a lawyer. If you have legal questions, ask a lawyer. Oh, and one last thing before we get started. Since I am not selling them and a ton of people are asking me if I can make them for them, sorry I cannot make like 50 free Groots and ship them all over the world, but what I am going to do is host a giveaway for a handful of them on my blog. If you want to pick up a free one, check out my blog in October. Alright, blah, 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 I will stop talking and let's get started. Oh yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention. I used less than a whole skein of this yarn, and this skein comes with 118 yards. So I imagine I used like less than 100 yards to complete my Groot. Although I do want to make him longer this time, so you definitely don't need more than one ball of yarn. So we're going to start with Groot's head, and we're starting at the bottom of the head, which is just a basic circle. So either make a magic ring or chain 3 and slip stitch to the first chain to form your own ring. And then you're going to work 6 single crochet into the ring. So chain 1 and then work 6 SC. And just to slow it down a little bit, on my last stitch, single crochet is insert your hook into the desired stitch, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through both loops, and that's 1 single crochet. Now that I've worked 6, I'm not going to slip stitch and join my rounds. I'm just going to keep working around in a spiral, and round 2 is 2 single crochet 6 times. So 2 single crochet in the first stitch, 2 single crochet in the next stitch, and just repeat that all the way around. Now I did recommend a tweed for this project, but it can be difficult to see your stitches, so if you're a beginner, you probably just want to use a regular old unfancy worsted weight yarn, just because it'll be easier to stitch. For round 2 you should have 12 stitches, and in round 3 you're going to work 2 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then repeat that 6 times total. You should have 18 stitches at the end of round 3. Round 4 is 2 single crochet in the first stitch and then 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. And repeat that 6 times. So you should have 24 stitches at the end of round 4. In round 5, we're going to change things up a little bit. We are no longer increasing 6 stitches each round. We're now just going to increase 3 stitches, or just increase 3 times. So the motif is 2 single crochet in the first stitch, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 7. And then you're going to repeat that a total of 3 times. So 2 more times. So at the end of round 5, you should have 27 stitches around. And remember, when I make 3D objects, I like for the right side of my work to show on the outside of the plush. So for the next 6 rounds, you're just going to work single crochet evenly around. So you might want to use a stitch marker to help keep your spots. I'm really lazy and I never remember to buy stitch markers, so I always just use a piece of yarn to mark my spot like this. And so then just work 27 stitches around for 6 rounds. The last stitch of round 11, and I'm gonna take out my marker, and it's kind of looking like a little bowl right now. And here I'm gonna slip stitch to the next stitch to join and make the, I guess just to give it a smooth finish. So a slip stitch is just stick your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through both loops, or all the loops. And I don't pull too tight because that slip stitch still counts as a stitch and I might want to work in it later. So usually when you slip stitch, you don't want to pull it too tight, otherwise you won't be able to get your hook into it next time. Don't break off. What we're going to do is we're going to keep working, and the next step that we're doing is we're going to be making these funny little ridges on his head. And I know this is a part in the pattern that kind of confused some people because I kind of take a weird shortcut. So I'll show you how I do that right now. Basically what we're doing is crocheting kind of triangular-ish and rectangular-ish shapes, and then also using slip stitches to travel to the next spot on his head. 1 single crochet each in the next 3. 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to chain 1 and turn, and you're going to 1 single crochet each in the next 3 again, which are the 3 you just worked. And then you're going to chain 1 and turn. You're going to skip the first stitch and then crochet in the next 2 evenly. So 1 crochet and 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. And that's basically his first nubbin, his first little head nubbin. And as you can see, we want to start working here, so we're just going to slip stitch down the side so we can get our hook back to this spot on the head. So I'm just going to work 1 slip stitch here, 1 slip stitch here, and then I can start working in the next stitch of round 11 again. So we're basically doing variations of that, but slightly different shapes. So the next one is 4SC evenly, so 1 single crochet each in the next 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1 and turn, and you're going to crochet 4 evenly again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1 and turn. Skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1 and turn, skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, turn, and then just here we are again. We're going to single crochet back down to round 11. So for me, this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you don't want to single crochet too tightly or you're going to warp the shapes you just made. On to the next. 4 single crochet evenly again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1, turn, and crochet 4 evenly again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1 and turn. I'm going to work 3 single crochet evenly. 1, 2, 2, 3. We're going to skip that last stitch. Chain 1 and turn. 3 SC evenly. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1 and turn. Skip the first stitch. Skip the first stitch and single crochet. And then apparently we just slip stitch down this side again. So slip stitch in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's see the next motif. 3 single crochet evenly. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, turn. 3 single crochet evenly. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, turn. 1 single crochet. Skip 1. Slip stitch, and then just slip stitch down the side here. So it's basically just 2 slip stitches. It's just 1 more slip stitch. I actually have no idea what the original pattern was supposed to be, but again, I'm just winging it now. That's fine. And let's start the next motif, which is 4 single crochet evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1 and turn, and 4 single crochet evenly again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1, turn. Skip the first stitch. 1 single crochet. Skip the first stitch, next stitch, and then in the next stitch, single crochet. This is just a way for us to decrease stitches. Chain 1 and turn. Skip the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the last stitch, chain 1, turn, and then just slip stitch down the side. So for me that's 1, maybe 2, 3, 4. The next motif is 3 single crochet evenly, chain 1, turn, 3 single crochet evenly, chain 1 and turn, skip this. This row is messed up too. I'm sorry, or this motif is messed up too. I will edit that in my pattern on the blog as well. Okay, so chain 1 and turn, skip 1, work 2 single crochet evenly, and then skip to slip stitching down the side of the rows. So, slip stitch down the side. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3. And the next motif is 3 single crochet evenly. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, turn. Apparently it is 1 single crochet. Skip 1 stitch, single crochet. Chain 1, turn, skip 1 stitch, single crochet, slip stitch down the side. Two, three. And the next one, this is the last motif, so we're almost back where we started again. So 3 single crochet evenly. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1 turn, 3 single crochet evenly. Chain 1 turn, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Skip the next stitch, slip stitch in the last stitch, slip stitch down the side of the rows. Get back to where you are, and I'm just going to slip stitch to the next stitch like that. And you kind of have this weird, like, zigzaggy, funky pattern here. The bigger pieces in the front, and then the smaller pieces go in the back. We're going to break this off, and then just weave in the end. I'm not normally going to show how I weave in like every single end for the whole project, but I'll just show you the first one. And there are like a million different ways to weave in ends, and everyone does it different, and you can just do whatever you want. But for me, what you try to do is you try to weave your yarn inside the stitches, like in the middle, not in the front or the back, so you can't see it. And I think that changing directions is really important to help keep that tail from ever popping out. I just did 1 change of direction. You can do 2 if you're really concerned about it. So at this point you can decide what part you want to be the front and center of the face, and then you can insert your safety eyes. I'm using 9mm. I kind of like for this big section to kind of be like on the side of his face and have the, I don't know, it's totally up to you how to position his face and his eyeballs. So I'm going to put my eyeballs here, 1 here, and then maybe 1 here. Once you're happy with how it's all turning out, then you can just snap on the backs. Now we're gonna create a circle to cover the opening in the top of his head, so he's just not gaping wide open. This is what I'm referring to as head part B. Repeating rounds 1 to 4 of head part A, which you just worked, so it's just that top circle. I won't show this part completely because we basically did that for the first part of the head, so we'll just get you going here. But if you need the video tutorial, just rewind and start at the beginning of the head part that we already made, head part A. So I've just finished round 4 of head part B. And then you're just going to slip stitch to the next stitch to join it, and then break off, leaving enough yarn for you to sew this to the head. So to me, I just give myself a good amount, maybe like 24 inches, and then break that off. Before I sew the top of his head on, I'm gonna work these little head branches first, because it's just easier to sew them to a flat circle rather than the finished head. These are optional. I think he's still cute without them, but I'll show you how I worked them. So it's basically the same thing. One's long and one's short. So you're just going to chain 8. Skip the first chain and work 2 slip stitches evenly. 1, 2, then chain 4. Skip the first stitch and then work 3 slip stitches evenly in the chains you just worked. Then continue to slip stitch evenly down your original chain. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's done. Break that off. Give yourself enough yarn to sew that on, maybe like a foot. Break off. So it got stuck. Okay. So that's the first one. And then to make a shorter one, it's the same concept, just fewer chains and fewer slip stitches. Chain 6 this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Skip the first chain, work 2 slip stitches evenly. 1, 2, chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Skip the first chain, 2 slip stitches evenly, and then slip stitch down the original chain. 1, 2, 3. Break off, leaving enough for you to sew that on. So now you have these 2 little branch nubbins. So now you're going to sew the little head branches onto the circle of head part B. The placement is up to you. I kind of like to do it a little bit off center. So I just run that through here like this. When I know it's hard to tell with all these ends sticking out. You can sew it on and attach it however you like, but I take both ends of the branch and I poke them through the top like that, and then I'm just gonna tie it on the bottom. Again, sorry about all these ends, that's just how it is. So tie that on. I'll tie it 3 times. And you can weave these ends in if you want. I'm not going to. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but if you would like to for security, then you can do that. We do the same thing. I'm just going to thread both of these ends through the top and tie it at the bottom. Again, just tie it 3 times. Now, so trim those 2 ends, get rid of them. You can actually trim this center one as well. You need to keep that one long one because we need to sew head part B to head part A. So you can see how those will stand up like that. We'll put all the leaves on later. For now, we're just gonna do the tree parts. So take this long tail and thread it through your tapestry needle. Now, it's the fun part. So decide where you want your head nubbins to stick out, how you want this oriented. I think I like that quite a bit. If you want, you can use pins. I tend to poke myself if I use pins, so I try to avoid it, but if it's easier for you to pin this, that's cool. Okay, something to keep in mind. Your top circle is 24 stitches around. Your outside head is 27 stitches around, so you can't really sew stitch for stitch. But the center part had to be smaller because it has to fit inside, so you're just going to have to deal with it. And also try to sew as invisibly as possible because you don't really want like Frankenstein stitches showing here. so you don't need to pull too tight. So what I'm going to do is put a little stuffing in his head first to fill it out a little bit. You don't want to overstuff the head. You don't have to. You just need to keep the shape. Because again, it is going to be top heavy because his head is big. So I'm just trying to minimize that weight by not putting too much stuffing in him. I'm going to be sewing from the inside, but to help you visualize what's happening, you're sewing this circle to round 11 basically, which is the top here. So pop that in the center, make sure your branches are where oriented how you want them, and you just gotta go for it. Just start sewing. I guess I'm not really sewing this to round 11, I'm really sewing this to the lowest edge of round 12. So I think like the lower you go, the wider his head will splay at the top, so I try to go as high as I can, which is about here, to kind of hold his head together more, his head shape together more. So I want to make sure that his branch nubbins are kind of jauntily off to the side. That's how I would do my head nubbins if I were a tree, off to the side like a hair bow. Right, I'm gonna put a little more stuffing in him. Get a little bit more of his lumps out and smooth out his head a little bit. Okay, so his head is done. It's looking pretty good. I think that my head, no, I don't know what to call these. His head accents are a little bit bigger on this second one that I made than the original one I made. So if you just, want to go down a hook size on these or remember to work a little more tightly, they won't be as big and splayed out. And I tried not to work too tightly on the branches just so you could see what I was doing, but you can also see if you work more loosely, the branches kind of get bigger, so if you want to, you can go down a hook size on these as well to keep them small, but it's up to you. Okay, now we're going to work on the body. So for the body, we're starting at the bottom of the body, and it starts the same way as head part A and head part B, and that's just crocheting a circle for 4 rounds. So you're repeating rounds 1 to 4 of head part A, and you should have 24 stitches at this point, and round 5 just continues the pattern for a regular single crochet circle. So the motif that you would repeat 6 times is 2 single crochet in the first stitch and then 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches, and you repeat that 6 times around. After round 5 you should have 30 stitches, and rounds 6 and 7 are just working single crochet evenly around, so the next 2 rounds are just 1 single crochet in each stitch. If you've been following my blog and you already looked at this pattern on my blog, I'm actually changing the body a little bit. It'll be a little bit bigger at the base because I want to try to, give more room for the beads and try to provide a little bit more balance at the bottom so it doesn't tip over as much. So I don't know if it will actually help, but I'm just trying it out. This is what it looks like after round 7, and in round 8 we're going to start decreasing. And so the motif for repeating is 1 decrease and then 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches. And you can decrease however you want to. I'm using the invisible decrease, and that's picking up the outside loop of the first stitch and then picking up the outside loop of the second stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And you just repeat that 6 times around until you have 24 stitches. And for round 9, you'll be decreasing by 6 stitches again. So the motif is 1 decrease and then 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. And again, you repeat that 6 times around. Oops, for a total of 18 stitches. Wrong. Okay, in round 10, we are decreasing again, but this time by only 3 stitches. So the motif for round 10 is decrease, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 5 stitches. Sorry, in the next 4 stitches. And then you repeat that a total of 3 times. And at the end of round 10, you should have 15 stitches, and it should be kind of looking like this. Before your opening gets too small, you either want to put in your polyfill stuffing or your beads or your sack of beads or whatever you want to put at the base of your toy. This is the sack of beads I made. I kind of guesstimated on how many or how much to put in. It's all really squishy and malleable, so I don't think there can really be a mistake made here, but obviously you don't want to put too many beads in there. I'm gonna have to crochet around it a little bit, which will be a little bit annoying, but I don't really see a way around that if you're doing this sack of beads method. Just gonna have to deal with it for a little bit. The motif around 11 is we're just decreasing 3 times again, and it's 1 decrease and then 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches. And it is a little annoying to crochet around the sock, but I'm gonna see how long I can put up with it. So at the end of round 11, you should have 12 stitches. I'm trying to keep this knot in the center because I have another small plan for it. So this is what we have right now. The next 2 rounds, rounds 12 and 13, are just single crocheting evenly around. So that's 1 single crochet in each stitch for a total of 12. So I've completed round 12, and I still have another round of single crochet to work evenly, but I'm gonna stop at this point to throw another wrench in the works a little bit. This looks kind of like a weird chocolate kiss. Anyway, so we talked about wiring the body, and I was thinking about how I wanted to anchor my wires. If you just use stuffing and you don't have a sack of beads at the bottom, you can always use your beginning tail here from the beginning of the body to kind of tie around your wire. But since I have this big sack of beans or this big sack of pellets, I didn't really know how I wanted to anchor my wire, and I was thinking about whether even that was important, but I think I'm gonna try it. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm using this knot to insert my wire, and then to anchor it, I'm just gonna wrap that around itself a little bit, like a couple times, give it a good twist. And how much wire I want, I don't really know yet. I'm just gonna cut a lot. I'm gonna cut like maybe almost a foot. I was using the wrong part. I wasn't using the wire cutter. Here we go. Right. So this is another thing we're gonna be having to crochet around. Did I just scratch my lens? I don't know if this is gonna work, guys. Okay. I'm going to keep crocheting. I am at round 13, and that's just another 12 single crochet evenly around. Round 14, you're going to decrease one more time, and you're going to decrease by 3 stitches again, and the motif is 1 decrease. Sorry. 1 decrease. In focus. I got 1 decrease, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches, and repeat that 3 times for a total of 9 stitches. And really the rest of the body is just working evenly 9 single crochet around and around and around until the body is as long as you want it to be. And my pattern on my blog, I suggest rounds 15 to 21. I will probably go more than 21 rounds this one because I want it to be taller than my first Groot so it fits in the pot better. The other thing I wanted to mention was while you're crocheting your body taller and taller, after you surpass your tights, if you're actually using the tights method, just keep stuffing lightly as you go and just kind of stuff lightly around the wire if you're using wire. If you don't have wire or the pellets, just keep lightly stuffing with polyfill as you go, and it's probably easier to use a small pointy chopstick or like a small pen or something to help stuff the polyfill in there. I think this is about as long as I want to make this. Looking a little suggestive to me right now. I have no idea how many rounds that is, but if you wanted to mimic the same length, it is about a little more than 6 inches long. Slip stitch to the next stitch to join it, and then I'm gonna break off, leaving about, I'm gonna change, it says 12 inches of yarn, I'm gonna change it to 18 just so you guys have a little bit of leeway. Basically you're just gonna sew the head to the body. You can use pins if you need to. I think it's a pretty simple sewing job. I'm not going to use pins. Make sure there's enough stuffing up here at the top so that his neck isn't too floppy. So I'm just going to put, I mean, the opening is so small that a little bit of stuffing is going to go a long way. But I'm just going to try to get a little more in there. The method I've been using is taking a strip of stuffing and wrapping it around the wire so I can make sure there's kind of stuffing going all the way around the wire so the wire's in the center. And I'm sure eventually that wire is going to move around a lot, and it probably doesn't matter at the end of the day, but I'm going to make the effort. And what we're going to do with the wire is we are going to trim it. And I'm approximating, I think, I don't want it to pop out the top of his head. I probably want it to go like halfway in. So maybe at the eye line, I'm going to mark that with my finger and clip off like maybe to here and then bend it down. And then bend it down so it's not pinching right there. I mean, you're dealing with wire, that's going to be pokey anyway, even if you bend it down, so I'd rather my toys personally to be like soft and squishy. So, I don't know. Straight up stab this wire through his head, through the bottom, just go through that bottom hole. it should fit through. Like that. Oh my gosh, she looks so weird right now. So I've sewn all the way around. And then you just want to knot it and weave your end in. The join between his head and his neck is pretty strong. And I know you can't see it in the frame. He does not really stand up by himself. I mean, he does more so than this guy totally doesn't. This guy's like, that guy's a mess. His body is posable. Of course, if you bend him, he's gonna fall over. I mean, that's just the law of physics. If he's in his pot, he still kind of falls over. So I don't know that I really see an advantage to having his body totally posable, but if you're into that, that's one way to get that done. Now we're gonna do his arms. For the arms, you're going to take out about 10 inches of yarn to use for sewing later, and then you're going to chain 3 and slip stitch to the first chain. You can use magic ring, but don't pull it closed too tightly because the wire is going to have to go through that center hole. And then you just chain 1 and work 4 single crochet into the ring. And you're just going to keep working single crochet evenly around in each stitch, so it will be a tube that's 4 single crochet around, and you're going to work that for 7 more rounds. So I usually just count, it's 4 stitches for 7 rounds, so I just count 28 stitches and then stop there. The other thing is I normally like for the right side of my work to show on the outside, but for such a small tube it really is easier if the wrong side is showing. So if you're wondering why I'm doing that, it's just easier, it's less fussy. And if you want your arms shorter or longer, that's totally up to you, but this is the length that I wanted. And when you're done single crocheting around, slip stitch to the next stitch to join. And now you're going to make his little fingers. So I'm going to chain 3, skip the first chain, and then slip stitch in the remaining 2 chains. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch on the arm. Then I'm going to chain 5, skip the first chain, and slip stitch in the remaining 4 chains. And then slip stitch back onto the arm. And then for my last finger, I'm going to chain 4, skip the first chain, slip stitch into the next 3 chains, and slip stitch back onto the hand. And I'll usually just slip stitch to the first stitch to join just to make it nice and smooth. So those are your 3 fingers. They're all different lengths. If you want your fingers all to be the same length, that is up to you, but I liked the variation. Break off, leaving about, I don't know what that is, like 8 inches. Because while you're weaving in this end, you can kind of draw his hand closed a little bit. Because as is, it's like the fingers, they are kind of spread out a little bit, so I kind of like the hand to be a little bit more closed. And I can do that while I'm weaving in the end by sewing through the hand and the fingers a couple times. It kind of just holds the hand together a little bit more than it naturally would by itself. Like that. And how much you close the hand is totally up to you. I'll usually tie it down just so I know that my sewing is not going to come undone, and then you can just weave that end inside the arm. Obviously you're going to need 2 arms, and I already crocheted another one here. So now you're going to need to measure out some wire for the arms. Put the crocheted arms in position, or where I think they're gonna go, and then I'll cut some wire to approximate that length. Bend back one end, but leave one end pokey for now. So pick one side and insert the folded end into one of the arms at the bottom, not where the fingers are. And then poke this wire through his body where you want the arms to be, and I don't go right at the top by the neck, I kind of go a round or 2 below it, like this. And if you've done this with the pipe cleaners before, you'll notice how much easier it is to do it with wire instead. And bend back the tip of this. I don't actually even have a plier, like a baby plier, so this isn't the best tool for that, but I mean, as long as you can bend it back a little bit so it's not so pokey, then that's good. And then stick this through the base of this arm. And then just sew your arms down. This is what he looks like with his arms sewn on. And you can see you can bend them around. I can kind of feel the wire wiggling in there a little bit, which is kind of weird. At least he's posable. So the last couple things we need to do are put some leaves on him and also get some viney bits on him. Originally in the pattern on my blog, I tell you to chain for a length of about 12 to 18 inches, but that was for the shorter guy. So for the longer guy, you might want to chain more like 2 feet. And this one is 2 separate chains, so I'm going to do the same thing for this guy. So I'm going to chain about 2 feet worth and then see how much of a twist I can get from it. And when you're chaining and you're not sure how much you're going to need, but you want to start sewing it on anyway, I pull out some yarn to reserve for sewing, and then you can just start chaining. And you know, let's just say you've chained for 2 feet already. You can just loosen this up and then use this length to start sewing, and if you need more chain, you can go back with your hook and just keep chaining some more. So I always pull out some yarn first. This is about 2 feet worth of chains, and now I'm going to thread this through my tapestry needle. I'm trying to talk a little more quietly because everyone's asleep now. It's 4 in the morning. I usually start by tacking the end down at the top of his shoulder, kind of at the back, so you can run a stitch through here, kind of like he's wearing a sash. And you don't need to sew down the whole thing. Like, you don't need to sew down the entire chain length. I just sew it down at certain points that I think need anchoring. So you can kind of start twisting this around like that. It looks better if it's like uneven. Kind of see, you can play with it and kind of see what you like. If you want to, you can put a pin at the bottom, or pins everywhere if you want to pin it. Yeah, there's beans down there, so it's kind of hard to pin it. So how this looks is really like entirely up to you. So here I would probably tack it a little bit here. that. And then you just travel through him. And yeah, some of the stuffing's coming out a little bit. I don't really know what to tell you about that except pull it out a little bit and just deal with it. So yeah, just tack it down at certain spots. You don't need it to be like fully attached, you just need it to not move around, like not change position too much. Come down here. Just finish tacking this down. Remember, you don't have to go at the bottom because that's going to be hidden anyway, so I think I'm sewing through the pantyhose here. Okay, so just like that, super easy. So I made a second length of chain to do a second twisty vine. I think more than one looks good, but I started like I started the first one. I just kind of drape it over his shoulder and then tack it down back here. It doesn't have to be too major, it's just a couple quick stitches. And then you can do the same thing. You just start wrapping this around. And I'm going to pin it down at the bottom just to hold it into place. And just start going through and tacking all those little bits down like you did for the first vine. So this is what he looks like now. He's pretty stable in his pot on his own. I can't say that he's that stable outside of the pot. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is make him some leaves and a mouth. For the leaves, I'm switching to a smaller hook. I'm going to use an F hook. Actually, this is a G hook. You can use an F or a G hook. And I'm going to make sure I have enough tail to basically tie a knot and weave in an end. And the leaf is really simple. Just chain 4. Slip stitch to the first chain. And break off the little tiny cute leaf. And then how we're going to attach it is just, we're going to use these 2 long ends and basically tie the leaf to our whatever spot you want on Groot, and then weave and hide the ends inside of Groot, which sounds weird. So I'll do one. I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. So we're basically just tying all the leaves on and then hiding the ends inside of the body. So just thread one end of your leaf through your tapestry needle, and I'm going to do the leaf that's on his elbow. Just run that through wherever you want the leaf to go. Like that. And then just stick your needle back into the leaf, like that. Square knot. Just tie them together. However you want to tie these on, there's no wrong way. You just try to make the ends as invisible as possible. Like that, and then you can weave the end through his body. So I sewed on all his leaves, and the last thing he's gonna get is a little smile. So I'm gonna do that with some black yarn. I've seen some people work my pattern and they didn't put a mouth on, so that is totally up to you, but I like giving him a little smile. It seems more complete to me. And he's done. So hope you guys had a lot of fun crocheting your little baby Groots. As always, I love seeing your photos and videos of your finished projects based on my patterns. And for more free patterns, you can go to blog.twinkiechan.com, or for some of my patterns for purchase, you can check out my Etsy shop, which is twinkiechan.etsy.com. Again, I'm always open to suggestions or requests for video tutorials and projects, so if you want to leave those ideas for me here on YouTube, I read all the comments, even though I might not always have time to respond to them. So yeah, have fun with all your Groots. We are Groot. I'll see you next time. Bye!